I was in the air when it hit. I wasn't even on the ground. Came right off the crest of the hill. I say anything worth doing is worth doing right. And the things that I think are worth doing are hard and or scary. And if it's really, really, really something special, it's going to take everything you got to be able to just cut it. Obviously, I love racing and race cars, and my biggest realistic ambition, regardless of what anybody says, is to race in the Indianapolis 500. Of recent, in the last year, got connected with the Meyer family at Legacy Autosport, and they have USF 2000 cars, Pro 2000 cars, and of course have raced a lot of other things. And those are cars that are on the road to Indy, which is the feeder series that lead up to racing Indy cars. So USF 2000, Pro 2000, Indy Lights, Indy car. It's typically the natural progression. Of course, there are other series, there are other ways to get talent that relate to Indy cars, but that's kind of the thing that's made well for it. So Mike with the team, he's my age, Mike Meyer, reached out to me via an email after seeing a YouTube video where I spoke about some of the woes and difficulties. He had seen the troubles I've been having. He saw the people I was working with. He was worried for me, but hoped it worked out. And it didn't. And he's just simply say, I have a team and I've got some road to Indy cars, and I think I can help you with your dream to get to Indy 500. And if it doesn't happen, it's always nice to make a new friend. So I'm like writing him back. We really connect, and it's nice to have a friend who gets you and life, and we have the same struggles and ambitions and hopes, and we're building an Indy Roadster, an old Indy Roadster together now, doing a lot of cool things. He wanted to give me the opportunity to at least have a couple of tests, and tests oftentimes mean, well, you're testing the car and trying to make it go faster, you're practicing, or you're just finding out if a driver sucks or not. Test is kind of that general term. So a couple of tests and perhaps a couple of races. Wanted to give me that shot and get out there. And we talked about ways that we can find to put the sports marketing together and actually have some kind of plan to go somewhere. We're getting ready. We're going to do Pro 2000, which is the middle rung. And it's a fast car. They make like 260 horsepower, make a good amount of downforce, lightweight car, paddle shifting. Obviously, it's a spec series. And I came to find out how just insanely precise and sensitive they are to the tiniest of changes. I found out that changing the ride height of the car on the front or the rear 36 1/1000ths of an inch makes a drastic difference. The plan was to get me out to go practice and then to go to the Griffiths test at Indianapolis this year, because we didn't really have enough time to do a race, but to get out there, see where we are, and hopefully put something together for next year, being 2022 or this year. Contrary to popular belief, I don't have a lot of money to burn. I did not actually grow up in a wealthy family. My father worked from 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night every day of the year. So we're still kind of in that realm. So Mike and I he's being very nice and realistic and trying to figure out how I can get out and test on the cheap, get some practice and get out there. So we had an opportunity to go to Audubon Country Club, which is over in the Chicagoland greater area. I've never been to that road course, and it's not one where they would normally have those races, but it's a good opportunity to practice. So we go out there, he brings a little trailer. I mean, we do it on the cheap to get me out. You know, I go out, and first of all, I'm just being respectful of the machinery, because I've grown up building cars and vintage racing and stuff. You don't want to blow it up, and it wasn't coming up to temperature initially, and so I come in, it was chilly, and I'm like, it's not coming up to temp, I don't want to romp on your car and like spin a bearing or something. And he's like, just stand on it. I'm like, are you sure? And it's funny because I'm trying to be nice to it, and he's used to drivers just hopping in and like abusing stuff. So I'm like, all right, man. But we taped off the radiator and lets a little bit to get up to temp, and I'm being real respectful, getting going, had a couple little outings, just started to kind of get up to speed, and really loving the car. I like being at the track. It feels good. I'm happy to be there, but want to get the bearings of the car, know it before I start really romping on it. Come in, I was doing a video. There's rain coming, and we're like, oh man, okay, we'll get in one practice session. I'll hit it then. And then all of a sudden, over the PA, it comes, they're canceling all track activity for the rest of the day. And the funny thing was, we actually bought a full day of testing for an open wheel thing at Mid-Ohio. And the week before, they called me and said, yeah, we're canceling the day. You can do it another day. I'm like, I need to do it then. There were some other drivers going to come. Would it matter? No, you were the only entry that day. I'm like, great, thanks. So I was bummed because that hurt that, and then I got pushed to Audubon, and then the rain came and decided, no, you're not testing that day. So we're gonna go back to Audubon, like 2 days before the Griffiths test at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is a public test. That first time we went to Audubon, one of the mechanics, who's a goofball, he goes out, and we didn't know what a good time was around that track. So he goes out there, He sees a car go by and he's like, hits the stopwatch in Pro 2000 from another team. Sees the car come back around, hits it again. And I didn't know this. And Mike says to me, he's like, well, you ran let's just say it was like a minute 5 or something like that. He says, what if I told you a fast lap time here was 20 seconds faster than what you went? I'm like, I would say I'm slow as I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, Joey just timed that car out there and the lap time was this. I'm like, I don't think I understand the laws of physics. I mean, I was not up to speed yet, but I wasn't driving backwards. Like, how can this be? So I was ready to go out again. I'm like, okay, well, you know, that's fine. Maybe I just don't understand the aero envelope or something. I didn't get to go out again because it rained. So I go home and the next day I'm at Gene's garage. And I'm like looking it up and it's just messing with my deal. And I'm like, how fast is that track? Because I'm watching YouTube videos. I'm seeing like a radical go around the track. I'm like, wait a minute. The car's going around the track as fast as I was. Lap record and a radical? That's not a Pro 2000. I'm watching another one. I'm like, they're not much faster. And I'm like, lap record in the previous Pro Mazda. And I'm like, they're in the same gear I was in. The same line I was taking. And then so I look up track records. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. AJ Allmendinger set the track record at Autobahn South in a Champ car, like 10 seconds slower than what the mechanic told me a Pro 2000 car ran. And I'm like, what? And I called Mike. I'm like, Mike, what did Joey say the lap times were? I'm like, well, I'm looking here at the website that says the track records are this. And I ran this. And Mike's like, oh, crap. He might be a dumbass. So Mike texts me. And the mechanic goes, oh, crap. I'm a dumbass. He clicked recording on one of the cars that went out. It was a team. And then the other team car came by and he clicked stop. I said a lot of obscenities in kind of a happy way because my existential crisis was over. And then, so Mike writes back to me and the mechanic goes, oh, I'm stupid. And then the next was, oh, he might actually be pretty fast. And I'm like, yeah, but what? I'm gonna kill him. I felt better, but not, like the existential crisis was over, but I didn't feel truly better because I never got to practice. Griffith's test coming up, that's public. And by nature of doing YouTube, people are gonna watch me. So 2 days before Indianapolis, we go back to Autobahn. I'm like, okay, I've been here. I know what the thing is. Let's get down to business. And there's this other kid that's driving US F2000 that flew in from Sweden. And that has no bearing on anything, but I'm like, okay, this is business. We're doing this. Let's go. It's like 40 degrees out in the morning at best. It's cold and dark. And there's still dew. The track is damp. The grass is wet and lush. And it's obviously slippery. And a lightweight aero car, you're gonna slide around, but it's far more razor edge the amount of sliding you do. You're not coming through there like Dukes of Hazzard. I mean, you're dancing around and pushing it to try to get some temperature in the tires so that you can do it and be in an aero envelope. You're not gonna say fast lap times, but you need to get out there, get yourself up to speed, knock the rust off, get the car up to speed, understand it. And I came in and actually felt really good about myself in the car because those conditions sucked. It was slippery, it wasn't pleasant by nature, but I felt better because I'm like, okay, doesn't slide too bad. So next time out, I go out, and you come out the pits, and it's sort of funny in Autobahn, you come around the outside of the track, their pit entry is sort of weird, it's on the outside. You come out, and then you have to come to the far right side of the track because you get your entrance for the left-hander, it's about 45 degrees for a straightaway and just hit it. The car's already up to temp, it's heat soaked pretty well, so I can pretty much just get at it. But obviously tires are cold. So I'm coming around like this and sliding it just slightly on that razor edge, pushing it, and you come around to the track and it starts to yaw, and I'm like, that's okay, it's not a big deal. And I'm like, wait, it's not coming back, it's not reacting. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I'm like, oh crap, I'm gonna drop a wheel in the grass, which every racer has gone off the track at some point in their life. If you don't go off your track, you're probably not pushing it out, and you gotta find the limit. Well, in this circumstance, it's in the 40s, maybe 50 degrees. The grass is wet. I'm like, okay, I just put a wheel in the grass, no big deal. Okay, and now I'm in the grass. Okay, no big deal, I'll just kind of slow down and turn and get back on the track. So the first thing was like, oh, stupid, I put a wheel in the grass. Oh crap, I'm in the grass. I'll just slow down and come around. Oh crap, I can't slow down. I can't turn. I'm like, oh crap. And I'm projecting, I'm like, the track's over here. I'm going this way. And there's a steel arm coat barrier. I'm looking, I'm like, oh, I can't, oh, it's not turning. Okay, I'll go this way to miss it. So now I'm in a weird part of the track that was never designed for a car shooting off at that speed, because I already got a fair amount of speed and then hooked and ended up going this direction. Well, the arm coat ended, which is effectively, it's steel, it's an edge. It's like a big knife pointing at you. And I'm going right straight at the edge of the knife. And I'm like, uh-oh. So at this point, I realize there's no way I can turn. There's no way I can slow down. And it's a good football field away. And I'm still, boom, straight at it. And I look at it, I'm like, the best thing I can do is miss that arm coat. So I turn to the right. you could see, I looked in the picture like, I don't know, a degree, 2 degrees of course correction. That's it. It looked like a slug of speed. And I'm down the front of the car and I'm looking and I just missed the Armco by like 2 or 3 feet, which would have sheared at least the suspension, everything off the side. Probably, maybe just would have gotten the wing and the suspension and then hooked the car and spun it. Still not ideal. And I wasn't going tremendous speeds because you only get so fast coming out of the pits. But at that moment, I'm thinking, I'm an idiot. This is embarrassing. I don't do this. What on earth? But then, in that split second, fraction of a second, where that Armco was at the crest of a hill. At that point, I can see that I'm now going, I'll end up going backwards on the track for the front straightaway and the pit straightaway, which a couple of cars had just went off, and I'm like, okay, big deal. They won't have come around, and even if they have come around, I'll end up back on the asphalt, and I can dodge them and come over and just look like an idiot. But I get to the crest of the hill, and I realize, oh, there's another barrier. And I'm going to go into the backside of the Armco, broadside. And this is all happening like a quarter of a second. The next thought was, oh shit, I'm flying through the air. Because the car goes boop, right off the crest of the hill and I'm in the air. And so the next thought was, fuck, this is going to hurt. I took my hands off the thing and just went like this and like closed my eyes to bear it. And the car buried, boom, straight into the Armco, which is steel. I-beam dug straight in, and the backside. And the nose of the Formula car pushed the beams away from the I-beam. And it stopped. And meanwhile, I was in the air when it hit. I wasn't even on the ground. Came right off the crest of the hill. And it pushed the steel beams out and wedged the nose of the car behind the I-beam. And the I-beam dug into the nose and the carbon and cut through the honeycomb and everything to do it. I felt the jolt, but I'm like, oh. That didn't hurt. So first thing I gotta say is kudos to the Road to Indy on the safety of those Tatas tubs. But I just sat there. And so the safety people came by quickly and I'm like, hey, I'm fine. Car, and I like I couldn't even look at the car. Like I was just like, okay, manual suspension, I'm an idiot. So I remember coming over and Mike was there and I'm like, dude, I hooked it. Once I was in the grass, I can't do a damn thing. I'm sorry. I'm like, but then the worst part is, this is the part that I felt stupidest about was, so Butch, Mike's dad, kind of feels like the father figure, but like the guy you really respect because he was around IndyCar and everything from back in the day. Butch was looking after another car and I just came up to him and I give him a report and I just go, I fucked the car, I'll pay for it. We look after it, we get it back, obviously trash the wing, trash the nose. The other driver and Mike is like, yeah, we've never seen a Road to Indy nose get that screwed. The monocoque fared well, thank God. Bent the little pins there, destroyed all the suspension on the one side. Upright was all right. I think the wheel got a nick in it. So it actually fared really well. I was blown away at how well the car fared and frankly how well I fared. I think the guys at least respected me for taking ownership of it and being real with that. I did get a little razzing from Joey. I got the new nickname Harvey Wallbanger, which I thought was good. And then later at Indy, I got the nickname Sally Sandtrap because we did a setup change and I got really excited at how it was and I went ripping out and then looped it in the sand trap. So it's 2 days before Indy and I got the whole day to think about how stupid I am and also to help the other people and help the team. I was a little worried internally that the team is going to think I'm a buffoon, of course, but I'm still going to be their support. And they were all kind and patient with me and went out to dinner afterward and they're still nice. And I really appreciated that they were being patient and believing in me with my foolish mistake. So we're talking about how we're going to fix the car. We'll get parts from the Road to Indy at Indianapolis. And we'll fix the shop, bring it there because we're in the F1 garages at Indy. And it was sort of funny because I'm like, oh man. So we show up at Indy. They're in the Formula One garages and the car is there. But the car it's not fixed yet. We didn't have the parts. I'm like, they just got it out of the trailer and wheeled my car with my name on the back wing, 3 wheels, like a tripod with no wing, like doop, 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 through Indy, the gasoline alley, into the F1 garage. So I'm like, that's embarrassing. It was awesome. Butch did an amazing job, took it upon himself to fit all the new suspension, make everything, get on the jig, mic everything perfectly, and the car was set up perfectly, and you couldn't tell within a couple of hours. It was funny getting the Road to Indy because it was a great series. It was all that, but I am the weirdo there. I'm the old guy that refused to quit. You just got to own it because you're there. I just trashed the car and said I'd pay for it. And race cars are not cheap. We go out to Indy. The first day, Saturday, it was very cold and rainy the first outing. You know, we go out and slip sliding around. Now, I have driven the Indianapolis road course with the exception of they added the bigger old Formula One loop, but it wasn't the biggest thing. You know, and there's places where you can ride off a car, of course, but there's plenty of sand traps and things like that too, but I don't want any of that. Let's get through this weekend. Let's look smart. Let's keep the car in one piece. Let's learn how to work together as a team. Let me work on my driving craft, understanding the car, understanding the team. Let's all grow from this. First it was really cold and rainy. Second time out was damp. I actually came in, I'm like, everybody's on the reins. There's slick tires on my car. I am not going out. You know what I mean? Like, again, I'm like, Mike, I think we should put reins on this thing. He's like, yeah, tell Joey to change it. I'm like, you know, hey Joey, Mike said put reins on. He's like, Mike said that? I'm like, yeah, it's freaking raining, dude. Like, he's like, Mike said, I'm like, Joey, I'm not messing around with you. So we put on reins and go out, and it was a good experience and bringing the confidence back. And obviously it's cold, and that's not the most fun time to be in. But I never got to practice. I haven't been in an open wheel car in a decade like that. So I still qualified for the Pro Series with no practice. And I got the awesome team. So all I can tell you is this. We're going to go a lot faster. And I'm excited to see what the future brings.
We love Caffeine and Octane as our local Atlanta monthly cars and coffee meetup. We actually just shot some Car Trek episodes at their new racetrack they just bought, the Caffeine and Octane Raceplex across from Road Atlanta in Brazelton. You've also seen their television show, Caffeine and Octane, and the next series of that airs soon on Motor Trend. But the coolest thing that they've done lately is launching the High Octane free streaming services. You can get all the episodes of their series plus content from creators like That Dude in Blue and some extra VINwiki content on any smart TV, on your computer, Fire Stick, Roku, any way you access it. It gives you more automotive content than you could possibly imagine from the comfort of your couch, staring at your large television. So please check it out at the link in the description below to thank Caffeine and Octane for their support of VINwiki.